Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first podcast talking about everything having to do with BSSM and the school and everything we got going on here at the church. We're so excited to have these two amazing people with us. These are the founders, the fathers, the OGs of BSSM. You don't know what OG stands for?
No.
Like I said, the OG of BSSM.
Whatever.
Kris and Bill are with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about the school, its inception, how it got started, kind of the heart behind the school, and how everything kind of happened, and which is really an amazing God story. Everyone probably knows who you are, but can you just take a moment, in case they don't, introduce yourself?
He's Bill Johnson.
I'm Bill.
I'm Bill. Good.
I'm Bill, and this is Kris.
Great.
I'm Kris.
Great. Guys are gonna make me work today. Okay, fine. We'll put in the work. Hopefully, you're gonna enjoy it.
You're probably going to put a little thing underneath there that says who we are.
You think so? Okay. Well, let me just say this is Bill, and that's Kris. That's it. That's good. So, leaders of Bethel Church and kind of starters, I guess, of the School of Ministry, which brings us to our first question. The school's been around since, I believe, 98.
26 years.
Yeah, 98,
Yep.
right? 26 years. An amazing experience, amazing journey. Can we talk really quickly? Now if you look and you go and do a quick, internet search of ministry schools, there's a ton that pop up. But back in the day, in 98, you had to plug your computer in and wait for the tone.
Yeah, exactly.
Do all that stuff. So that happened. But after you got all that done, if you looked up ministry schools, there wasn't anything really that popped up.
No.
Well, you had YWAM, which is,
Christ for the Nations, great school.
In both
Texas,
of those schools are amazing.
Great school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Can we talk about ours?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
Can you just really quickly? How did it start? What was the kind of thrust behind? I think we should have a school of ministry.
I had a desire in my heart for us to train people, and didn't know what it would look like, but had that desire. And we were together in Sacramento, and Graham Cook was ministering, and he called me out and prophesied over me and addressed specifically the school that we were to have. And so it really, how when you have something in your heart and then somebody you trust and love calls it to the surface and affirms it, that's really what happened. That was the beginning.
I'd say even in Weaverville, Bill, like as far as like the training of the supernatural has always been in your heart since.
Yeah.
We've been together 46 years, and I remember us doing Hunter videos. What was their names? Last names?
Charles and Francis.
Hunter,
and you John Wimber and Mario Murillo. All the
we'd gather at this house once a week or every other week and watch these videos, and then Bill would lead us in, praying for one another for sick or prophecy, and I mean that was like just the seeds of it, right? Way back then. It was already in your heart to do something like that.
When I was on staff with my dad, I was on staff with my dad in 1973 to 78. We actually started a school then to train for. Yeah. Just a night school. Yeah. Just the desire to train people and figure out some way to do it effectively. And so we had the dream. Graham Cook called it out, prophesied it, really encouraged us, gave us the courage to pursue it then. I asked Kris to come on down from his business life in Weaverville, and he came and joined us. And we put a team together to do some research to figure out how we should model it, because we didn't know what to do.
Did we model it after?
We didn't model it after anyone, actually.
we tried. We couldn't figure out. Couldn't find anybody. That honestly we didn't find. Like again, such great schools. They're such great schools, but what was in Bill's heart, we didn't find anyone that was actually doing that.
Yeah. So we researched. Bernie Uli and others did bunches of research for us, and we just took all the information and we figured out that we just needed to kind of create our own. So that's what we did. Yeah.
And all that happened. So school opened 98. So this was what, 90?
It was 97.
97?
Yeah, I think I came on staff as a volunteer in 97. And then Kathy followed the next year because I was driving back and forth for the first year, and we would just meet, like 4 or 5 of us. We would just meet and get a whiteboard and what could a day look like. So we started out like, okay, what could a day look like? Because start with one day. Can you fill one day? Mm-hmm. And then I would we'd do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd go into Bill's office and go, does it look like this? And he'd be like, well, maybe not that part. Like, we need some more of this. And then we'd go back, and that's kind of how it started. It just kept going over and over until we found something that it felt like, that's a good start right there.
You have a goal of what you want to accomplish, but you also have a culture. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to be true to who God has made you to get to where you want to go. So that's kind of what we settled on.
What was the initial goal?
Well, a gospel of power, honestly, not bypassing character, because character has to coincide. So that's a given, that we've got to raise up people with great integrity, great character. But we did not want to have a philosophy of power. We wanted it to be experiential and for it to happen. So that was a primary target. Yeah.
I remember I was trying to ascertain what are our core values for the school. And I remember one of it was, I think the first one that I remembered is you said do and teach. I want to have a do and teach school. I don't want to have a teach and teach or a teach and preach. Mm-hmm. I want to have a do and teach. And I remember that so clearly because when I would go back to the team that was actually creating the structure and, like the daily schedule, I'd be like, okay, we're going to teach about prophecy. What's it going to look like? Because Bill wants to make sure that we're teaching it and we're doing it. And so we spent a lot of time on activations. Like, what does it look like to actually do it? And then some things were a little harder, like, what does activation look like on, the subject of love, which is kind of important. It's like, oh, that's going to be more acted out in culture, but I think that that was a lot of the early days of trying to architect what was the core values, was a lot about how do we actually demonstrate it.
Wow.
Now I would put it this way, is that we teach, we model, and we empower.
Yeah.
So that philosophy that we embraced so much early on, we wanted to make sure that we have an empowering part. So we teach it, we declare it's true, we model it, try to give an example, and then we empower people to do it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I do want to talk in just a bit about some of the changes that have happened over school, but you mentioned that's how you would communicate it now, which I think is a lot closer to what we do now in school. Totally. I would say that, and if you didn't know, I got to be in the first class ever. I barely got to be in there, but I got to be in there.
Barely passed.
Barely passed in there. It was challenging.
He knew somebody.
Yeah, it was good. But that do and teach model really was. I just remember being in school, and it was almost like whatever we were going to talk about that week, it would happen first. Yeah. So I have lots of stories, but I remember like we talked about deliverance, and it happened first, and everything that would kind of do would kind of happen in school.
Yeah.
And then Kris would talk through, well, this is how we're doing that, or this is what just happened. This is the scripture for that, and all of that. So it was kind of that model.
I remember on that note, that exact subject's deliverance, right? So I was teaching deliverance, and I was sitting in the back.
Oh, I remember
with my notes, and I was, it's the first time I've did hundreds of deliverances by then, but teaching someone else to do it's quite a different thing. So I got all these notes, and I'm a little nervous. And, there's 37 students in class. And Bernie, I think it was Bernie, had them sharing, like, from the week before what, a testimony. So I'm back there, and I'm half listening because I'm looking over my notes and making sure I'm ready. And then after about the fourth person up there goes, I don't know, she comes to the mic, and she goes, I don't know what's wrong, but it just feels like something's controlling me. And I'm like, and she's like, I don't know, I think it might be a demon, that's what I'm going to teach on, deliverance. So from the back, I go, and I rebuke that spirit that's in you. And down she went on the floor, crawling like a snake. You remember that?
I do remember that. All the students were like, wow, this is amazing. And I was in the back going, Lord, please don't let there be anything. Just forgive me of everything I've ever done ever. I'm so sorry. I don't want to do that.
Okay, I guess this is what we're doing. So we gathered the 37 students around, and I'm like, okay, just watch what I do. And so I was explaining why I did it. And as we started to expel the spirit from her, 3 more people fell on the ground.
Yes.
So we had 4 people on the ground, all demonized, like full on manifestations. I'm like, okay, let's break up into 4 groups. And we broke up into 4 groups. I'm like, okay, just do what I do. And that first gal ended up being one of our children. She became our children's pastor several years later.
Yeah, Kathy had to get in there too.
Yeah, Kathy was in there.
Just do what I do, and all the students were doing stuff, but nothing wasn't quite working the same way in that moment. So Kathy was like, "Let me show you, amateurs." It was
She jumped in, but that and then I know Bill did the same. On all the subjects that you were teaching it, but that was week 2. I remember I was teaching on a prophetic week. This is week 1, right? Prophetic week 1. I'm teaching on a prophetic. Never have taught a group of people before. It's always been discipling a few people, right? So I'm like, all right, same thing. We're developing the notes and the curriculum as we go because we don't have anything. Everything we've done was in relationship. So it's like, okay, we got a whole bunch of people here, and Bill had traveled and taught a lot more. So I'm speaking for myself in this case. And I start out with, and I pick this psalm that says, "And the Lord's voice thunders from the heavens." And I'm going to read that passage, and I'm going to say, creation actually speaks. And I'm 3 minutes in, and I get to the verse that says, "And the voice of the Lord thunders from the heavens." It's summertime, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it starts out of the blue. It starts thundering and lightning.
Yeah. It's the end of summer, September. So yeah,
September. So we just lay on the floor, and it thunders for a half an hour, and then it stops. And then I get up and go, "Well, that was pretty good." Do you remember that?
I do remember that. It was incredible because for us as students, we were living the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
It was.
The Lord was like, confirming His word.
This is like we're in the Bible,
Totally.
And it was amazing and scary. And I mean, for me, I went to school like super insecure, so I was just scared every day. Like every day, I would just walk in, and go, "Lord, please don't let me die in this place." And it was in a beautiful way. It was a scary place to be. It was
in the beginning.
In the beginning, not because the Lord wasn't in it, or it was
because He was.
Because He was. Like honestly, like I'd never experienced anything like that before ever.
Yeah.
He was there, and there was a unique reverence to His presence in that space. And so, when I tell people like, "Oh, I was scared every day," that was for an insecure guy, that was true. And then you'd have amazing teachers come in. I remember you had Danny Silk come in.
Oh yeah.
Before he was on staff, and Danny did the Danny stuff, and I'd never heard anybody do that. And and he's digging into your heart. And who wants that in church? Do you know what I'm saying? No one wants you.
And Havilah and Deborah would come in and prophesy over every single person.
Yeah.
And then they'd transcribe it, and that was the beginning.
Oh yeah,
pretty fun.
I think we had Bobby the first year, and Larry Randolph.
Crazy Bobby.
Yeah.
With his angel stories, it was amazing.
Oh, it was amazing.
He's still amazing. Actually.
So we could just tell stories if you want, but that's not the point of the podcast. But we could do that. Let's talk really quickly. How has the school, or do you think how has it changed over time in just school? I know we've gotten bigger and up and down. We have an online school now that is thriving and amazing. You've watched the school since 1998, 26 years. What have you seen that's changed?
One of the things that's happened is that the school has a reputation. Another way to put it, the school has a testimony.
Yeah.
You've got people that are scattered all over the world that are really making an impact on cities and nations. I mean, the preaching of the gospel, no compromise. So you have that kind of a momentum. It's not that you have to live up to it. It's just that that there's such a history of breakthrough that there's an expectation. You've got Ben Fitzgerald and Chris Overstreet and all these different ones, and Tracy Evans, who taught in the school, but she's such a mark on the world.
Yeah.
You have these people that have hit the planet so hard with the gospel. I think that adds kind of a fear of God in the school when people come and they realize, he was trained here, she was trained here. And they have that kind of that sobering approach, which you don't start with that. You have to earn that. But I think that's one of the things. I think we've also gotten better. We've learned at what works, what doesn't work, how to train people. Bethel is one huge experiment. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. But the School of Ministry is that. It's an experiment where we try to figure out how can we empower? We bring Randy Clark in every year, and his big deal is that impartation thing where people's lives are radically different. So that's become a significant part, I think, of our culture. Culture is momentum. Culture takes time to build, and it creates a momentum. And so I think the culture of the school, at first, the culture of the school was shaped by the culture of Bethel. Now it coincides with Bethel. It's not greater than. It's not inferior. It coincides. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I think it works. Yeah.
Can let's quickly maybe talk a little bit about the culture piece? Even some of the stories we shared, like looking back, you didn't know, but that was all building culture and the risk requirement for us in school and for our students is pretty incredible. You just mentioned briefly, which is I hear you say often is, we're kind of a bit of an experiment, and if Bethel's an experiment, then I don't know if that's the right terminology, but School of Ministry is that radiation room in the back of that, in the back of that place. You know what I mean? And and I get to lead in there, and sometimes I'm like, this experiment's amazing, and then sometimes you're like, oh Lord, can we talk through that piece? There's
Frankenstein comes out of the laboratory and you're like, failed experiment.
Yeah, and then sometimes you get it right, sometimes we don't. But the level of freedom we get to get it wrong is often what produces some of the best leaders you talk about are produced in that culture of
totally right.
freedom.
Yeah, it's if you don't have someone to follow, if you have someone that models what you want, then the best thing in the world is to follow somebody, is to be discipled. It's to have Randy come in and teach you how to pray for the sick. Best way to learn. But if you don't have anyone that is living at the level you are hungry for, then you have to experiment to get there. And so that's one of the things that we've done well. We do it good in the sense that we fail good and we succeed good. Not moral failure, just the failure of not getting it right, Yeah. And we give each other a lot of grace in that area to learn how to do something. Means, if we've not done it before, we don't know who in the country or in the world that is doing it. And, like in the prophetic, I didn't know in many years ago, back in Weaverville days, I didn't know anyone that was functioning in the prophetic like we were hungry for. So we just experimented. And the same with healing and everything else. We just, we learned the best we could from others, but then we had to experiment.
Yeah.
I'd say we didn't have much of a map. We had a compass.
Yeah.
We just try to stay true north, meaning follow the Holy Spirit. Didn't always get it right. And then, we articulate like this. We have an R&D culture. Yeah. And what we I like the illustration of business because I obviously was in business so long, but if in Apple computer, you have the manufacturing department that has 0 defect core value. So if I buy an iPad, I want it to work. Winter, spring, summer, fall, wet weather, whatever. I want it to always work. But in order to develop that iPad, the research and development department had to have a very different core value system.
That's right.
And they Edison's 1,000 mistakes to make a light bulb. And he says, no, it's 1,000 steps. So I'd say, like in the area of character, we want that to be 0 defect. We don't have 0 defect, but that's our goal, 0 defect. We want you to always be honest. We want you to always be authentic. We want you to, always be moral. But when it comes to learning how to minister with the Holy Spirit. That's that R&D. That's that. What we tried, that didn't work so good. And in the early days, you're talking about the difference. In the early days, we obviously made a lot more mistakes. We didn't know anything when it came to at the level we were training at. I mean, you're training one-on-one. That's a very different thing. You're training 37 people, and the next year 68 people. And by year 5, we were 600 something people. I mean, that's a very different thing. And so, I'd say one of the things I'd say is we've gotten better because we've failed a lot. In the early days, we failed a lot, and then we debrief, like why did that not go well? And and I think honest debrief is a part of R&D. It's like, hey, that blew up, and we plugged that in. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out why. And so, we had lots of conversations, Bill and I, and as the team grew larger, like, how would you do that differently? Yeah. And then, and then we make adjustments, and then you adjust your culture, which adjusts the momentum.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think one of the questions we always get asked is from people that, want to start training people, and knowing that we've done it just, I don't know, for longer, is the hurdles that we face, in process. Love for you to maybe talk through some of those hurdles. But one thing you said that I think is really amazing is what probably most people don't know is our level of feedback and how we talk through things and go back and go, well, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to work.
Exactly.
And, well, you prayed for how many people? Let's let's figure that out. Or, even with our city, like we want to bless a city. So we send an army of people, and then we get phone calls from every business in our city going, could you please not do that? Could you just keep your students? There was a moment when the school was, when I first came to lead in second year, I think I had every manager of Starbucks on my phone.
Speed dial.
Yeah, because I would have to go clean that up, and I'd be like, just call me if you have a problem with our students. And they're like, your students are praying in my Starbucks. I just need them to buy a coffee and go home. So
exactly.
Can we just talk through like what are, as you see it, the biggest hurdles that you faced in creating the culture that we have in school?
A huge part of our culture is a lifestyle of risk. And so on one hand, the boldness to share the gospel in Starbucks is what we're looking for. On the other hand, we are also trying to build a healthy city, and part of a healthy city is a series of successful businesses where people thrive. And so that's a tightrope, because what I don't want to do is empower somebody to go mess up your business, to make it to where people don't want to come there. Because then, while I maybe can put a notch on my Bible that somebody got saved, what happened is I actually affected the lifestyle of many families that would normally participate in that business. So it's trying to walk through these combination of values. It's not one value versus the other. It's there are other ways to practice boldness and courage, and to step out and in a way that doesn't destroy somebody's livelihood. And so for me, that was a huge part of our. In fact, I first brought that to our students back when we had some of our bolder individuals, and watched them. They got it. I mean, they nodded their head, and I could tell they actually realized that they didn't want to negatively affect commerce in a community, so that they can feel good about them preaching boldly. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we've gotten a lot better in helping people actually get well. We have a bigger team, and we have a better team we've ever had. And so, by the time we got to year 5 or 6, we were able to have the fivefold ministry. So, it wasn't just Bill and I as the primary influencers. Now we've got pastors, now we got teachers, now we got evangelists, and we, real ones, not people we just give a title to. And, over a period of time, that they help to create a healthier and healthier and healthy culture. And I'd say, like, now I feel like we do a lot better job of helping people deal with their inner world and getting well. And I think that, we, when I look back, we had, in the early days, I think we did a really good job training in the supernatural. We were very big risk takers, and we didn't have anything to lose because nobody knew who we were. And I think that, but we had a lot of broken people. We had a lot of broken people. And I think that probably what we learned a lot in the early days was more how to help the broken people than it was how to demonstrate the supernatural. And I think now, that, that's always a process, because the Lord loves the broken. He loves the weak. He's attracted. I'd say the Lord's attracted to the broken and weak.
That's good.
So, I think we've now, with the teams that we have and the health of our own staff is, and the maturity of our own staff, we got 40 people who can preach amazing on our staff.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'd say, I think our teams have done a lot better job of helping people get healthy. I mean, I've had 2 grandsons that came to our school, and neither one of them were healthy. They know this. I have permission to share. And one of my grandsons was barely saved. The only reason he got in was because of me, honestly. And the first week, he had an encounter on the ground where he thought he was out for 15 minutes. And this young man was in need of some help, very broken. And so the revival pastor was wise enough to have someone stay with him. And 4 hours later, he woke up.
Wow.
On the floor. He was on the floor for 4 hours. Thought he was there for 15 minutes. And that young man woke up a completely different person. Did all 3 years of our school.
Wow.
I'm so proud of him. My other grandson had a very similar experience. So, I'd say from my family has experienced the fact that our teams are much better at helping people get well and helping people change from the inside out. And I'd say that we don't have perfect success in anything, but I would say our school's really been amazing at changing the hearts of people, changing the actual hearts of people.
That's awesome.
And I know you see it even more than we do, because you're more in the trenches than we are.
Yeah, which I do want to talk about, because I think a lot of our culture, because of the testimonies, and to be probably, if I'm really honest, because of the internet, like there's lots of stories of our students doing crazy stuff, which, in a family that's however many thousands of people we've led, like, okay.
19,000 people we've graduated alone.
Yeah, granted. And some of those stories are amazing, and some I'm like, I wish you wouldn't have done that. And I can be honest about that piece, like, I love those.
Or they repeat what they think we taught.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what I said.
Yeah, not even.
Not what I meant, for sure.
Not even close,
Yeah.
And so we do get lots of those, and my answer is always like, I'd love to just follow your family around, with a video camera for just see what happens. But on a real practical way, I think our school is known for risk. It was built in the culture at kind of the inception.
Yeah.
But a lot of what we do is foundational in teaching of our students. It's, we want our theology to be solid and strong and all those things. Can you talk through a little bit of that kind of process with the two of you who really set the culture for that, and with our students, spiritually, in a theological way, how would you guys think we structure that to create that solid foundation that we want for our students?
Well, I'd say, again, here's another great example of how we've matured. We have Dan Fairley. We've got, 3 or 4. I would say Leslie Crandall. We have. I was trying to think about one of our top guys.
Yeah, we have Rich.
I was thinking about Rich, and they're teaching the Bible every week. So they're going through the entire New Testament. They're going the overview of the Old Testament, and so people would see us, wild and crazy, but having a great teachers teaching the foundations of the faith, the foundations of the Bible. So our students, I would say they have, I don't say they graduate as theologians, but I'd say they have great hands-on experience with the Bible. And, we're teaching, in first year, we're teaching the Bible 3 times a week, like just Bible, just pure Bible. And so our students are getting, they're getting that. And then I would also say, like, morality, like we're really in a culture of immorality that we've seen. It's like, we don't want to react to the culture. We want to respond by teaching healthy sexuality, by bringing people in that, that we have on our staff former gay people who have been there and done that. and can actually speak to our students about, how not just the ills of immorality, but like the brokenness of it. And so, those are all things I think that we're doing that's creating foundations. We are I think we were a tremendous school the first few years, but we are such a better school nowadays. We are creating healthy people. I say creating, that's not true. I mean, we're not creating anything. God's doing it all. But the opportunity to get healthy now with the teams we have it wouldn't be exaggeration to say 10x. I mean, the Lord's just given us so much wisdom, and he's given us such a great team. And the testimonies we hear are not just the guy healed, the guy got delivered. We hear those all. We hear those all week long. But my grandson's stories are repeated over and over in our culture. And those are the ones that I, as an older man, probably get me more excited than than the miracles we see, even though I love both.
Yeah, we had to learn. We had to learn how to get people healed up.
Yeah.
Because we started a school and people wanted to do the stuff, but they came so broken, and we realized that we either adjust what we do and how we serve them, never losing sight of what we want as the outcome is an authentic gospel of purity and power. But we had to learn, and these guys, this team, you guys have done just so well, so good.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying. I would say we're trying, and I would say to you guys, we have this thing we say kind of around here, which is true. And part of this family is we love us. Like we love the Lord, and we kind of like us, and trying to do the best we can with what we feel like God's given us. I think, being in the school, the first class ever, and now getting to lead second year, what an amazing journey the Lord took us on, not just personally, but the school on. And I would be honest and say, I think we're much better. We sat in class today. You mentioned yesterday in class, you came out of school yesterday, you were teaching. And every class thinks they're the best class. Like it's kind of like having kids. You're like, you're the best kid ever. It always just feels like it's getting better and better.
It does.
Every year. And God's doing so many amazing things. Hopefully this gave you just a small kind of insight into the start of the school, to the kind of the culture we set, to how we do our best to grow and lead and develop. And there's so much that happens in school. I think the testimonies and the stories are amazing, but like you said, what happens in your heart, what happens in your life, how you grow and develop between first, second, and third year, we'll never be able to capture that in such a short amount of time. So if you want to capture that in our environment, we would encourage you, take a risk, come to school. What happens in this place is unbelievable. So we invite you. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the two of you. We love everybody, and we hope you have just the most amazing, blessed day.
Amen.
God bless.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We hope that it really impacted your life. And if it did, would you take a moment just to like, subscribe, maybe share it with your friends? And if you want to know more about BSSM, we would love to have you check out our website, bssm.net. We are an amazing 3-year school of supernatural ministry. You can go to 1, 2, or 3 years. You can be any age. We have people that are right out of high school up to grandmothers and grandfathers and everything in between. We think this school is going to change your life. You're going to be around like-minded believers. You're going to pursue the Lord. You're going to be around the most amazing moments in worship, in prayer. You're going to be in your word. You're going to take the most amazing classes. Why don't you check us out online? Thank you so much for joining us today. Be blessed.